Hello everyone. In this video, we will discuss the current drain on Bitcoin and how to live on in general, what to do, whether it is worth buying, whether it is a global debauchery, and whether the same growth will be above $33,000. So, in previous videos we discussed that Bitcoin should get a reaction from this support zone. Here, it is logical to consider put purchases and look for positions for you. Unfortunately, this zone was pierced through, and of course, I did not expect this as much as possible. And now, Bitcoin is driving a little into a stupor. But let's try to figure it out. Let me also remind you that in the previous video, I wanted to consider the position here. In principle, there was an opportunity. I tried it. Unfortunately, I came out on the foot. Here we made a break, showed a good payback for the decline. I tried a flume position with a stop for this loy, but unfortunately, I knocked out the foot. As a result, we saw a drain. Here, I made a spot purchase on Bitcoin and also got altcoins, which were purchased at the limits at the levels I mentioned earlier. Unfortunately, Bitcoin surprised me. It has fallen much lower, and now it is difficult to understand what will happen next. But personally, I am acting according to my plan, that is, I am gaining a position. And in general, we discussed with you that all this growth of 16,000 is not a bull market and is just a correction. Therefore, here, we are trying to make money in a tough bear market. And at the very beginning of the 2023 year, I warned that this year is the year of accumulation of positions. And personally, I was preparing for such a scenario, that is, where I was going to buy Bitcoin every day for $500 for a year. I partially succeeded. There has been growth here, which was also not anticipated. But the most important thing is that altcoins are now in the zones where I wanted to accumulate a position. Therefore, I continue to hold them. In no case do I sell anything. I also hold a position on Bitcoin and will continue to wait for Bitcoin above 33,000. I'll have to be a bit of a holder, but as I said, goals above 33 in my understanding are still relevant, and the only question is how we will get to them. Everything looks locally, of course, not very good. The zone was pierced through, and, in fact, now it is a resistance zone, and at least, we should get here for bounces in the near future. And already here it will be possible to keep an eye on pricing. Perhaps the downward movement will continue from here, but I also do not rule out that here we will get a sharp payback and exit for 3,500. Because the magnets on top have remained, they are still relevant, and this growth should happen. If we talk about the current reaction, it comes from this support zone. The reaction is not bad, considering that this loy was removed on the futures chart. That is, we went to 24,700 and lower on some exchanges. Accordingly, I eliminated all the longists, all the stops were removed, and now it is logical to see a rebound. And if we talk about the continuation of the decline, then for this, liquidity should be formed, new longs should be formed. Accordingly, now, I definitely do not expect the decline to continue very deeply. And since we have a weekend ahead of us, in the near future we will be locked in this sidewall. And here, I would still try to look for long positions. Perhaps they won't even give us a fracture. And now the priority in my understanding is to wait for the test of this zone, and then look at the situation. Whether we will go below to update this loy to this support zone is still difficult to say. It looks, of course, everything is sad, as if we are going to fall there with the current ones. But I will refrain from such forecasts for the time being and will wait for the formation of the current sideways. That's all for Bitcoin so far. There is no specific plan of action here. I would look closely at the langs, but very carefully. And personally, I said about my actions buying Bitcoin here, so far there are no additional limits. Let's go a little further, and whether I will buy here is not yet clear. And the question also whether we will get there remains open. But now let's move on to altcoins. And here the situation is quite interesting, because alt did not show anything supernatural, unlike Bitcoin. Of course, it was as unexpected as possible to see this in Bitcoin, but pay attention to alt Bitcoins. For example, on a coin. Where did this tool come from? To the support area that we allocated. Here, I also made a spot purchase and act according to my plan, despite the super negative, including the news. The goal of $9 and $6 is still relevant, and I will only sell my position there. It doesn't matter where the link falls. So far, I am not considering additional purchases. There are no limit orders, and I would like to see a reaction from this zone. The minimum target at the moment is 6 and 9, firm where the decline can continue, but I doubt it so far. In general, the link, not taking into account Bitcoin, looks pretty good. We got a logical correction, a support zone, from where we would like to see a reaction. Moreover, this zone is not pierced through, as on Bitcoin, and this is a fairly positive sign. Next, let's look at Aptos, and there is also nothing supernatural happening here, because we discussed this fracture a long time ago. Here, I made a limit purchase, which I had been making for a very long time. Strengthen your position again according to the plan, and technically, it is also logical to expect a reaction from this zone. The minimum target at the moment is 6 and 4, but the medium-term goals are also not cancelled in any way. I am sure that we will reach them, despite the current drain. Whether the fall will continue, whether we will come below this low, it is difficult to say at the moment. I do not allow it, and there should be at least a good rebound from this zone. Next, let's also look at the coin flow, and in fact, the same thing. They made a fracture. Here, I strengthened the position with a small volume, because it is already huge, and the risk there is overestimated. Therefore, for flow personally, my plan has changed a little. At this point 0.8, I want to throw off at least 30% without loss. And this target is a fairly conservative goal that the flow should reach, despite the current drop. Therefore, there are 2x's from the current potential. Who does not have a flow at all, you can definitely buy a small volume. We see the same thing on Algorand. In fact, all altcoins are now punching the body in, which I would like to demolish here, that is, to see a reversal pattern, and only then go up. Here, I also made a purchase on the limit. Technically, Alga looks very good at the moment. That is, we see a deviation from below in this range, and already a return. That is, in fact, it is a long, with a stop for this level. You can also try, but I personally type this tool on the sweat. I'm going to sell this tool only in this zone. And from the current marks, it is more than 2x's. Those who do not have a position can take a closer look at this tool. The next altcoin, and we are also making a break, but at the same time, we have not reached this support zone. So we will most likely still see a break here, and from this zone, we can look closely at spot purchases and long positions. Personally, the limit on the fracture worked for me. So far I am not considering additional purchases. I also consider the goal of $0.9 to be completely relevant. Next is Solana. We also discussed here that we are unlikely to see strong growth from this level. At least we got a reaction. And Solana wanted to see in this zone. We partially came here, but personally I am not considering purchases specifically on Solana yet, and continuing to observe. It is still difficult to talk about this goal, but if the growth in Bitcoin does happen, Solana, I think, will also easily reach there. But it's better to look at other tools that are more obvious, such as a link, for example. Next, let's look at the atom. The situation here is quite complicated, because as I said, there is no special support zone on the left, and it is difficult to understand where he will get a reversal. And so far, I have also considered a spot purchase on a limit order at this break, and I am not considering any more purchases at the moment. Specifically for the atom, it is difficult to talk about growth from the current ones, taking into account this incomprehensible zone. And here I am essentially just a holder. There is no duty for a long time, because it is a strong tool. I am confident in it. And even if it comes to long-term goals of $2 or $3 from the current ones, I will not be very upset, because there are a huge number of goals from above, and we also have to come to them. Well, the very long-term goals that I also singled out for many altcoins, for example, Atom $2. I believe that we should not reach them now. And in my understanding, the current drop is a very similar drop of 19,000, when a huge amount of negative news came out, including on stable coin, but in the end, everything grew quite quickly. I do not exclude that the same thing may happen now. Next, let's look at Excerpt, which is also an interesting tool. At the very I also released a video where I said that this is by no means a bull. This tool is still rolling. I singled out an optimistic goal. Here we did not reach it, and as a result, the tool rolled away. I personally do not consider any purchases. Now I would be watching this support zone, which we did not reach the previous time. Perhaps we will see some kind of rebound in general, as well as throughout the market, but I would not wait for a move here. In the long run, the XP should continue to roll away, but in the current realities, it is logical to see a rebound, at least to correct the downward momentum. Next, the near coin also made a break. A spot purchase was made. By the way, I made many spot purchases, including on spot capex, and all purchases were made on limit orders, as I said, acting strictly according to plan, despite the negative. According to research, everything is also relevant. The minimum target is here, the more optimistic goal is here, and personally, I will just hold positions until we get to these zones. I am not considering additional purchases at the moment, and I just have to wait. Next, the coin DOS. The situation is a little different here, because we haven't removed this low. Accordingly, there is a small hint that the decline may continue, and it is also possible to make a purchase on the dot at the turning point. Personally, I made a spot purchase here and placed a limit order on the break. The minimum target for a rebound, at least at the moment, is at this level of 483. Next, the coin Ether is also here. As much as possible, everything went wrong according to plan. I wanted to see a reaction from this support zone, and we broke through it. It happens very rarely, but we have what we have. and that now you can wait on the air. In fact, an important low was also removed. By the way, for Bitcoin, it is not removed on the spot. We came to this support zone, tested this block, and it is also logical to see a rebound. The minimum target is here. Well, I still consider the goals from above relevant, and in my understanding, the global reversal is not happening now, and it should happen higher in this zone, where it is logical to gain global short positions. As you remember, Ether has a long-term goal of $500 and below, but I believe that this is a goal that will be achieved not from current prices, but after that very growth. The only question is how and when will this growth happen? So far it is difficult to answer this, and we will have to wait a little and monitor the pricing. Well, in the end, let's look at the dollar index, because at the moment, it is the only lifeline that the market can deploy. Now, where I shot this high, and now it is logical to see the reversal that I have been waiting for so long, and in my understanding, the DY can descend into this zone, against which the market should grow. And again, this is the last decline, after which the dollar index should continue its growth, and very high on the removal of this I. I hope this will not happen from current prices, because in this case, everything will be very, very bad. If you look at the small time frame, there are already small prerequisites for a reversal at the moment. Firstly, here we see the work with liquidity above, the accumulation of liquidity from below, and a potential order block at the moment with divergence, so we carefully look at the back of the XY. It is very likely that here we will get a reversal, and this means the accumulation of potential for growth in all other markets. I also want to note this growth in the index, and now something similar is happening in my understanding. That is, after updating this high, we did not get continued growth. On the contrary, we simply withdraw liquidity and continue to decline into the zone of interest. Now ideally see the same thing. This video comes to an end. The market is in complete chaos right now. I'm sure most of the players in the market were not ready for such a fall, including me, but I still continue to accumulate altcoins and Bitcoin including, and act according to my plan, despite the negative. Thank you all for watching.